They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. For 3 months, my home had become a graveyard of unspoken words. I watched my husband, Daniel, sit on that couch like a statue, looking right through me as if I were nothing more than a piece of furniture he was tired of seeing. Finally, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I asked the question that had been burning in my throat. Daniel, why don't you want me anymore? He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just smiled, a cold, hollow smile that made my blood run cold, and said, "Because, Emma, you gave away what was mine." At that moment, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, but slowly, like thin glass under pressure. I stood there, frozen, trying to understand what he meant. My mind rushed to defend itself before my heart could even catch up. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my effort to stay calm. Daniel leaned back slightly, his eyes still locked on mine, but there was no warmth in them. No anger either. Just something far worse. Emptiness. "You really want to do this now?" he asked quietly. There was something in his tone, something that made me hesitate. But I had already stepped too far into this moment to turn back. "Yes," I said. "I do." For a second, he just looked at me. Then he stood up slowly, like a man preparing to deliver a speech he had rehearsed 1,000 times in his head. "Okay," he said. "Then let's stop pretending." Those words hit harder than any scream ever could. Because deep down, I already knew what he meant. The truth is, our marriage hadn't collapsed overnight. It didn't shatter in one moment of betrayal. It faded. Slowly. Quietly. Like a photograph left in the sun too long. 10 years of marriage reduced to routines, small talks, and tired smiles. We still said good morning and good night, but the space between those words had grown unbearably empty. Daniel was a good man. Stable. Reliable. Predictable. And maybe that was the problem. Or at least that's what I told myself. It started 4 months ago. A company retreat. A weekend away from real life. That's how these things always begin, don't they? You tell yourself it's harmless. Just a break. Just a little escape. That's where I met Marcus. He wasn't extraordinary. Not in the way movies describe. He didn't sweep me off my feet or say magical things. But he looked at me like I mattered. Like I was still something more than a wife stuck in a routine. And I wish I could say that was all it took. But that wouldn't be the truth. The truth is, I let it happen. The first conversation was innocent. Work-related. Casual. Safe. The second one lasted longer. The third crossed a line I pretended not to see. And by the fourth, I had already made a choice. Not a mistake. A choice. Back in the present, standing in front of Daniel, I felt all those memories rushing back at once. "You're imagining things," I said quickly. "I don't know what you think you saw." "Stop." That one word shut me down instantly. Daniel walked toward the coffee table and picked up a thin folder I hadn't even noticed before. He held it in his hand for a moment, almost like it weighed more than it should. Then he looked at me again. "Do you really want to lie to me again?" My heart dropped. Again. That word echoed louder than anything else. I swallowed hard. "Daniel, please just talk to me." "I am talking," he replied calmly. "For the first time in months, I am actually talking." He placed the folder on the table between us. I didn't touch it. I didn't want to, because some part of me already knew what was inside. "For months, Emma," he said. "For months." The exact amount of time since that weekend. My chest tightened. "I didn't want to believe it at first," he continued. "I told myself I was wrong, that there had to be another explanation." His voice didn't shake, not even once. And then I saw everything. I felt my hands growing cold. What do you mean everything?" He let out a quiet breath. "The messages," he said. "The calls. The photos you thought you deleted." My stomach twisted. "You forgot something," he added. "Cloud backups don't lie." And just like that, every excuse I had prepared, every lie I had rehearsed, collapsed. I took a step back, shaking my head. "Daniel, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think," he interrupted. He opened the folder. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't look away either. Printed screenshots, dates, times, conversations, proof. Every single piece of it. Undeniable. My chest felt like it was caving in. I can explain. No, he said softly. You can't. His voice wasn't harsh. That was the worst part. If he had yelled, if he had broken something, if he had shown even a little anger, maybe I could have handled it. But this calmness, this distance, it was unbearable. I watched it happen, he said quietly. That sentence made my entire body freeze. What? I watched you fall in love with someone else, he continued. His eyes didn't leave mine. Day by day, message by message. Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. Daniel, I whispered. But I didn't even know what I was going to say next. Because for the first time, I had no defense left. He closed the folder slowly. I gave you everything, he said. 10 years, Emma. His voice softened slightly, but not with emotion, with finality. And you gave it away, like it meant nothing. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't something we could argue our way out of. This wasn't even a breaking point. This was the end. And somehow, the silence that followed was even louder than the truth. The silence between us stretched so long, it felt like time itself had stopped. I stood there staring at Daniel, hoping, desperately hoping, that something in his expression would change. That maybe I would see anger, pain, anything that meant he still cared. But there was nothing. Just that same calm, distant look. And somehow that hurt more than anything else. I made a mistake, I finally said. The words felt weak the moment they left my mouth. Even I didn't believe them. Daniel let out a quiet breath and shook his head slightly. No, he said. You didn't. His tone wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was certain. A mistake, he continued, is forgetting something important, missing a deadline, saying the wrong thing in the moment. He took a step closer, not aggressively, but with purpose. What you did was a decision. Repeated, over and over again. Each word landed like a weight on my chest. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Because deep down, I knew he was right. You didn't just wake up one day and betray me, he said. You built it. You fed it. You protected it. Tears finally slipped down my face, but I didn't wipe them away. I didn't deserve to hide them. I was lonely, I whispered. It sounded so small, so meaningless compared to everything else. Daniel didn't react immediately. He just looked at me, studying my face like he was trying to understand a stranger. Lonely, he repeated. There was no anger in his voice, just disbelief. I was right here, he said quietly. In the same house, in the same room. His eyes searched mine, and for a brief second, I saw something crack beneath his calm. Something real. Something human. Why didn't you come to me? That question broke something inside me, because I didn't have a good answer. There was no dramatic reason, no single moment I could point to. Just distance. Routine. Silence. I don't know, I admitted. And that was the truth. Daniel nodded slowly, as if he expected that answer. Of course you don't, he said. He turned away for a moment, running a hand through his hair. You didn't think about me at all. That's not true, I said quickly. But even as I said it, it felt wrong. Because if I had truly thought about him, I wouldn't have done any of this. I did think about you. I tried again, my voice weaker now. I felt like we were fading. Like we were losing something. Daniel turned back to face me. We were, he said simply. His honesty caught me off guard. But marriages don't survive because they stay exciting all the time, he continued. They survive because people choose to stay, even when it's not. I felt my chest tighten again. You think I didn't feel it too? He asked. That question surprised me. I felt the distance, he said. I felt you pulling away. I just thought. He paused. I thought you were going through something. That you needed time. Guilt hit me harder than anything he had said before. Because while he was giving me space, I was giving myself permission to leave. I trusted you, he added quietly. And there it was. The one thing I had truly destroyed. Not just love. Not just loyalty. But trust. I'm sorry, I whispered. But the words felt empty. Too late. Too small. Daniel didn't respond to my apology. Instead, he walked past me and toward the window. For a moment, I just watched him, unsure of what to do, what to say, or even how to exist in this new reality. The worst part isn't the betrayal, he said after a while. His back was still turned to me. It's what you did with what belonged to us. I frowned slightly, confused. What do you mean? He turned around slowly. Our life, he said. Our history. Our intimacy. His voice remained steady, but his eyes held something deeper now. Something heavier. That was ours, Emma. Something we built together over years. I felt a lump form in my throat. And you took those pieces and gave them to someone else, he continued. Each word was precise. Controlled. You shared things with him that were never meant to be shared outside this marriage. Tears blurred my vision again. I didn't think of it that way, I said weakly. I know, he replied, and somehow that hurt even more. Because if you had, he continued, you might have stopped. The room felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in around me. I wasn't trying to replace you, I said quickly. It just happened. Daniel shook his head. No, he said again. It didn't just happen. He stepped closer once more, his voice still calm but sharper now. You chose him over me. Over us. I couldn't argue anymore. There was nothing left to defend. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel took a slow breath and straightened his posture slightly. I'm leaving, he said. The words hit me like a shock. What? I'm going away for a week, he clarified. His tone was practical. Almost businesslike. I need space. Panic rose in my chest. A week. I repeated. Daniel, please, we can talk about this, we can fix it. No, he said firmly. That one word stopped me again. This isn't something we fix in a conversation, he continued. Or in a day. Or even in a week. My hand started shaking. Then what do we do? He looked at me for a long moment before answering. The truth, he said. I blinked confused. What? I want the truth, he repeated. Not excuses. Not summaries. Not the version you think will hurt me less. My heart started pounding again. Daniel. Everything, he said. The weight of that word settled heavily between us. I want to know when it started. How it started. Every message. Every meeting. His voice didn't rise. But the intensity behind it was undeniable. I need to understand what I was living in, he added. Tears streamed down my face now. You really want that? I asked softly. He didn't hesitate. Yes. I shook my head slightly, overwhelmed. That will destroy you. Daniel held my gaze. No, he said quietly. What will destroy me is not knowing. That answer left no room for argument. He walked toward the door, then paused for a moment. Without turning around, he spoke one last time. Write it down, he said. I felt my breath catch. Everything, he repeated, and then he left. The sound of the door closing echoed through the house like the final note of a song that had already ended. And just like that, the house felt different after he left. Not quieter, not emptier, just heavier. Like every wall, every corner, every piece of furniture had absorbed what just happened, and was now silently judging me for it. I stood there for a long time staring at the closed door. Part of me wanted to run after him, to beg, to scream, to promise anything just to stop him from leaving. But I didn't move, because deep down, I knew this wasn't something I could stop. Slowly, I turned and looked around the living room. This was our home. 10 years of memories lived here. Birthdays, quiet dinners, lazy Sundays, late-night conversations that once felt endless. and now it all felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. My eyes landed on the folder still sitting on the table. I walked toward it, my steps slow and unsteady. For a moment I just stared at it. Then I opened it again. Every page was a mirror, not of who I thought I was, but of who I had become. The messages felt different now. Before they were exciting, secret, alive. Now they looked hollow, desperate even, like I had been trying to fill something inside me that I didn't understand. I closed the folder quickly, my hands shaking. Daniel's words echoed in my head. Write it down. Everything. I didn't want to, but I knew I had to. I walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table. The same table where we had shared hundreds of meals. The same table where we once laughed, argued, planned our future. And now it was where I would confess everything that destroyed it. I grabbed a notebook and a pen. For a few seconds I just stared at the blank page. Felt impossible. Where do you even begin when the truth is this ugly? But then, I started writing. The first sentence was the hardest. My name is Emma. And this is how I broke my marriage. Once the words began, they didn't stop. They poured out of me like a storm I had been holding back for months. I wrote about the company retreat. How harmless it seemed at first. How easy it was to laugh with someone new. Someone who didn't know my routines, my flaws, my ordinary life. I wrote about Marcus. How he made me feel noticed. How he listened in a way that felt exciting. Even though now I realized it was shallow. Temporary. I wrote about the messages. The late nights. The lies I told Daniel without even thinking anymore. Working late. Extra meetings. Just tired. Each lie looked worse when it was written down. More real. More deliberate. I wrote about the first time I crossed the line completely. How I knew it was wrong, and still didn't stop. How I told myself I deserved something more. Something different. And as I wrote that, I had to stop for a moment, because that was the truth I didn't want to face. I wasn't pulled into this. I walked into it, willingly. Tears blurred the page, but I kept writing, because for the first time, I wasn't hiding anymore. Not from Daniel. Not from myself. Hours passed, but I didn't notice. The world outside faded away. There was only the pen, the paper, and the truth. I wrote about the excitement, the thrill of doing something secret, the way I convinced myself it meant I was still alive, still desirable, still more than just a wife in a routine life. But then I wrote about the other side too. The guilt, the constant fear of being caught, the way I started avoiding Daniel's eyes, because I knew I didn't deserve to meet them anymore. And finally, I wrote the part that hurt the most. I wasn't running toward Marcus. I was running away from myself. That sentence stayed on the page longer than any other, because it explained everything, and nothing at the same time. By the time I finished, my hand was sore. And the notebook was full. Page after page of truth, of choices, of consequences. I closed the notebook slowly. It felt heavier than anything I had ever held. Then my eyes fell on something sitting beside me. My wedding ring. I had taken it off without even realizing it. At some point during the writing, it had slipped from my finger and onto the table. I picked it up gently. For years this ring meant everything. Commitment, loyalty, love. Now, felt like something else. A symbol of a promise I had broken. I placed the ring on top of the notebook. Not as decoration, but as truth. This was what it all came down to. Days passed slowly after that. I didn't hear from Daniel. Not a call. Not a message. Nothing. The silence he left behind was different from before. Before it was confusing. Now it was deserved. When he finally came back, everything was already decided. We didn't scream. We didn't argue. There was nothing left to fight for. The divorce process was quiet, simple, final. 3 months later it was over. I remember sitting alone the day it became official. No dramatic moment. No breakdown. Just silence. I picked up my phone and sent him a message. I told him the truth one last time. That Marcus was gone. That whatever I thought I had found had disappeared just as quickly as it came. A fantasy. Nothing more. Daniel replied. His message was polite, kind even. He said he wished me well. But there was no invitation, no second chance. No, maybe someday. And I understood why. Some things once broken don't come back. I heard from a mutual friend later that Daniel was doing okay, that he had found peace in his own way, that he had started rebuilding his life. And that was something I had to accept, because while I had broken his heart, I hadn't broken him. As for me, I had to live with what I had done, not just the loss of him, but the understanding of myself. The silence I once feared had become my reality, and in that silence, I finally understood something I should have known all along. Love isn't something you protect when it's easy. It's something you protect when it's hard, when it's routine, when it feels like it's fading, because that's when it matters most. Endings and beginnings often look the same, quiet, uncertain, almost invisible. The difference is what you choose to build next. Daniel was ready for his next chapter, and I was left learning how to live with the one I had burned down.